incredibly shocking. When any fighter fails a performance-enhancing drug test, it is incredibly shocking and disappointing.
So it's just arms, but that's what it is. He's just a man.
Yeah, most definitely. That's what we're here for. We're not here to play games. We're not here to take part.
Stop all this. And it's not about consistently doing it. It's just doing it. Number one, they've done it. So you want your license back. You know how you get your license back? You have to say where you've got, who supplied you with the drugs. Not, oh, you've been tested positive. You've been tested positive, but now we want to know where you got them from.
For Rico, he's been a phenomenal fighter. He's done everything he's done in kickboxing. I don't think it'll ever be done again. What him and
Breaking news. The footage of Rico in the lead up to this fight is now being looked at with completely different eyes after taking drugs from bottle, then shocks drug test failure. Every single training session and every single public appearance is now being examined by the entire boxing world that is trying to understand exactly when and exactly how this happened to Rico Verhoeven.
We're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Need a drink break after this ass whooping.
Eddie Hearn steps forward after Rico's shocking drug test failure and says they are still waiting for complete clarity on the test results. Hearn says the British Boxing Board has been involved and says they are waiting for all the final results to come back from the testing agencies before anyone can make any truly definitive statements.
But when will we get some clarity on that?
Not before the fight, but again, with the British Boxing Board of Control, that's actually irrelevant in terms of the testing agencies. We've just been waiting for all the final test results to come back from.
Rico had stood in front of the entire world and said he had studied Usyk's weaknesses and was going to show him something completely different that he had never seen before. But the whole boxing world is now asking one devastating question. Were those improvements real, or were they coming from something found inside a bottle?
Of course, we've watched a lot of footage, and every fighter has his openings and has his weaknesses. So do I. So that's how we approach it, and we just try to show him something different that he hasn't seen before. So, I'm not your typical boxer.
Teddy Atlas steps forward after Rico's shocking drug test failure and delivers a surprisingly measured and thoughtful verdict on the entire situation. Atlas says Rico deserves a chance to present his case, and says ultimately it is up to the fighter to decide what they truly want to do. But Atlas also knows that a failed drug test at this level before a fight of this magnitude changes absolutely everything about how the entire boxing world will view Rico Verhoeven's career and legacy from this day forward.
He deserves, a little bit of an easy one, if it turns out to be that way. And I think that it's the kind of fight that it's just up to Usyk. What does he want to do?
Duke McKenzie asks the biggest question in the Rico scandal. How can both drug tests come back positive before the Usyk fight? Duke says Rico has nowhere left to hide because the A sample and B sample showed the exact same banned substance. Fans are now accusing Rico of trying to cheat before stepping into the ring with Usyk. Duke says boxing people will never fully believe any excuse Rico gives.
This is the point. How can he give a sample and then a B sample and they both come back positive for a banned substance? It doesn't make any sense.
Johnny Nelson says drugs do not turn someone into a smarter fighter before a huge fight like Rico versus Usyk. Nelson says chemicals might help strength or speed, but they cannot create boxing IQ, timing, or skill. He believes Rico tried to gain an unfair advantage before the Usyk fight and still got caught. Nelson says this scandal proves cheating cannot save a fighter when the truth finally comes out in boxing.
In a 2-minute interview, I always say, it don't matter what drugs you take, it doesn't make you a better fighter. It might make you stronger, might make you fit. It doesn't make you a better fighter. That's proof. So until more news comes out, you just got to deal with it.
Frank Warren delivers the most serious and most direct verdict on Rico's shocking drug test failure and says it is pretty sad and genuinely horrible. Warren says Rico came in as a late last-minute substitute and says he assumes Rico had tests in the fights he had the week prior. Warren says this is simply dangerous and has to be completely stopped, and says he keeps banging on about this issue because it is out there now and Rico will have to deal with it exactly like every single other fighter who has ever tested positive with absolutely no special treatment and no exceptions for anyone at any level.
I wouldn't even have considered him, but he has. So it's got to be dealt with. So what will happen? There'll be a hearing. UKAD will have a hearing. He'll have to present his case.
The boxing world reacts to Rico's shocking drug test failure with a powerful and chilling silence that says more than any words ever could. One spokesperson steps forward and says talk is completely cheap and says they normally have a lot to say, but today they are choosing to stay completely silent. They say they only want to talk about what is going to happen on fight night with USYK, and says that is all. The whole boxing world understands this silence perfectly, because when a fighter fails a drug test before the biggest fight of their career, sometimes silence is the most devastating response of all.
Tense. All I can say to all that, talk is cheap. I normally got a lot to say, but you know what? I choose to be silent today. I want to talk about today and what's going to happen on the 9th of May, and that's all. Talk is...
Frank Warren delivers his most powerful and most emotional verdict on Rico's shocking drug test failure, and says it is genuinely sad and horrible from every possible angle. Warren says Rico came in as a late last-minute substitute, and says this kind of thing is simply dangerous and has to be completely and permanently stopped at every level of the sport. Warren says he keeps speaking about this issue repeatedly because every time it happens it damages the sport and betrays every single clean fighter who has dedicated their entire life to competing with honesty and integrity. Warren says Rico will now have to deal with this failed drug test exactly like every other person who has ever been caught, with full consequences and absolutely no exceptions regardless of how famous or how legendary their career has been.
Well, it's all pretty sad and horrible, isn't it? You know, he came in as a last-minute substitute, and obviously he must have had some. I assume he had tests in the fights that he had the week prior to that, because he fought, didn't he, the week before. But look, you know, it's dangerous, and it's got to be stopped, and that's why I keep banging on about it. But you know, it's out there now, and he'll have to deal with it like anybody else who gets tested positive.
Frank, can you...
Usyk steps forward after Rico's shocking drug test failure and delivers the most calm and most powerful reaction of absolutely anyone connected to this entire situation. Usyk says he simply does not think about these people because they are just talking. Usyk says boxing has been the most important piece of his entire life for a very long time, and says people told him he would never win the heavyweight belts, and he proved every single one of them completely wrong. Usyk says Rico's drug test failure does not change anything for him, because he has always known that the only thing that truly matters is what you do inside that ring with honest preparation and genuine skill, and no banned substance in the world can give you that.
I don't think about these people because it's just talking. Listen, I long time go to my God. Boxing gets pieces my life. A lot of people say, hey, listen, you not take belt heavyweight, you not take belt.
Derek Chisora steps forward and delivers the most savage and most uncompromising verdict on Rico's shocking drug test failure, and says the punishment should be a complete 10-year ban with absolutely no exceptions and no negotiations. Chisora says if you hit someone while using performance-enhancing drugs and that person ends up in a wheelchair for the rest of their life, then what are you going to do about it? Chisora says you get caught taking drugs in this sport where people risk their lives inside that ring every single night, and the punishment should be immediate, 10 years. Chisora says you have to live with that guilt on your conscience forever, and a 10-year ban is the absolute minimum that any drug cheat in the most dangerous sport in the world truly deserves for betraying every clean fighter and every loyal fan.
Should be 10-year ban. No way. Because if you hit that person and they're in a wheelchair for the rest of their life, what are you going to do? Because you cheated? No. You get caught taking drugs. It should be a 10-year ban straight away. Boom. Bobby's your uncle.
Yeah, listen. You got to live with that guilt. No, you got to live with that guilt on your conscience.
Tyson Fury steps forward after Rico's drug test failure and delivers the most savage and most brutal advice about exactly what should happen to Rico when all the dust finally settles. Fury says just do the absolute best you can and remember that Usyk was hurt badly by a body shot before and went down heavily. But then Fury drops the most uncomfortable truth of all. If Rico had to use drugs just to feel prepared enough to face Usyk, then what does that say about how truly ready and how truly confident Rico was in his own natural abilities? Fury says landing that body shot means nothing now because the whole boxing world will always wonder whether Rico's training and preparation was genuinely clean or whether the drugs were the real source of everything he was bringing to this fight.
Knock him out. Because I wouldn't say that because it's in England and, you know, it's on his home show, so just do the best you can, that's it. Best you can. It hurt him before with a body shot, put him down heavily, so maybe he can land that same body shot, put him down again.
Usyk closes everything with the most powerful and most chilling final words of this entire devastating Rico drug test scandal. Usyk calls the whole situation bad behavior from the very first second to the very last, and says it has gone way beyond sports now and feels more like a complete street fight mentality that has absolutely no place in professional combat sports at any level anywhere in the world. Usyk says fair enough about sports, but what Rico did goes way beyond what sports should ever look like. And then Usyk delivers the most chilling warning of all. He says if his own supporters threatened to kill someone, he would be absolutely furious. Because this man who has been cheated against by a drug-using opponent is still the most calm and most focused and most spiritually grounded champion in the entire sport, and Rico Verhoeven's failed drug test has not changed a single thing about who Usyk truly is, or what he is completely and absolutely capable of inside that ring with clean hands and a completely honest heart.
Listen, it's bad behavior first. Enough. Yeah, it's not big about sports. It's like street fight, yeah. If my men who support me, yeah, I kill you.
What you have just witnessed is the entire boxing and combat sports world reacting to one of the most shocking and most devastating drug test scandals the sport has seen in recent memory, as Rico Verhoeven failed his drug test before his massive fight with Oleksandr Usyk and left every single fan completely stunned and deeply betrayed by what they were hearing. The analyst called it incredibly shocking and deeply disappointing. Frank Warren demanded that Rico reveal exactly where he got the drugs and who supplied them, and said a positive test is simply not enough. Duke McKenzie asked the most devastating question of all: how can both the A sample and the B sample come back positive for a banned substance with no credible explanation? Derek Chisora called for an immediate 10-year ban and said if you cheat in a sport where people end up in WHELCHAIRS, then you must live with that guilt on your conscience forever. Johnny Nelson reminded everyone that drugs do not make you a better fighter and said this is the proof right here for the whole world to see. Teddy Atlas said it is ultimately up to Rico to decide what he truly wants to do going forward. Eddie Hearn said they are still waiting for full clarity on all the test results. Peter Fury called Rico a phenomenal fighter whose extraordinary legacy is now completely and permanently overshadowed by this devastating drug test failure. The boxing world chose silence as their most powerful response, because sometimes silence says everything that words simply cannot. And through all of it, Usyk stood there as the most calm and most spiritually grounded champion in the entire sport, and said he simply does not think about people like this, because boxing is a piece of his entire life that cannot be tainted by cheaters. The painful and uncomfortable truth at the heart of this entire situation is that Rico Verhoeven stood at that way and pushing Usyk and screaming that he is just a man with 2 arms and 2 legs, and said he was not here to play games. And yet the drug test revealed that Rico needed chemical help just to feel ready enough to face a man he was publicly claiming he could beat. And that is the most devastating and most final verdict on this entire shocking situation that the whole boxing world will never truly forget.